You've been told that the only way to awaken is through meditation, to sit still, cross your legs, breathe deeply, and wait for enlightenment to arrive like a guest at your door. But what if that's not how awakening truly works? What if higher consciousness doesn't need silence, candles, or rituals? What if the real awakening begins in the middle of your ordinary, messy, unpredictable life, in the noise, in the conflict, in the moments you least expect it? Most people think meditation is the only road to awakening because it's been repeated so many times, like a sacred rule nobody questions. But the truth is, meditation is just one form of awareness, not the source of it. Awakening can happen anywhere, in a traffic jam, during a difficult conversation, in the middle of heartbreak, or while scrolling through your phone, feeling empty for reasons you can't explain. Because awakening isn't about escaping the mind. It's about seeing through it. It's about watching the endless noise inside you without trying to fix it or judge it. It's about realizing that the chaos you keep running from was never the enemy. The real trap isn't overthinking, it's believing that you are your thoughts. The reason people struggle to awaken without meditation is because they keep searching for peace as if it's hidden somewhere far away, behind the next habit, the next book, the next spiritual technique. But awakening isn't a reward for discipline, it's the recognition of something that was always there. It's like suddenly realizing that you've been standing in the sunlight the entire time. You just had your eyes closed. And here's the strange part. When you stop trying so hard to be spiritual, you actually start to awaken. Because trying itself is resistance. The harder you chase peace, the further it runs. But when you finally stop chasing, something beautiful happens. Awareness reveals itself. You begin to notice things differently. You notice how your thoughts jump like wild monkeys from one worry to another. You see how your emotions rise and fall like waves. You see how easily your attention gets hijacked by distractions, fears, or validation from others. And yet you're watching it all. You are no longer trapped inside the storm. You are the sky watching the weather change. That's the secret of awakening without meditation. It's not about closing your eyes. It's about opening them wider than ever before. When you start observing your life instead of reacting to it, everything transforms. The same arguments don't trigger you the same way. The same chaos doesn't control you. You stop taking everything personally. You begin to see that the world was never against you. It was only mirroring what was unhealed within you. And the best part? You can do this anywhere, anytime. Standing in line, washing dishes, talking to someone who drains your energy. You can awaken right there, simply by noticing what's happening without judgment. Every ordinary moment becomes a classroom for higher consciousness. Every emotion becomes a doorway to self-understanding. Meditation in its essence is simply awareness in stillness, but life itself is meditation in motion. Every second is offering you a chance to wake up, if you're willing to look closer. Yet, here's where most people get stuck. They think that if they're not sitting in silence, they're not doing it right. They judge themselves for not being spiritual enough, not disciplined enough, not calm enough. But awakening isn't about perfection. It's about presence. The moment you stop trying to become enlightened, you start to realize you already are. Because awakening isn't an achievement. It's a remembering. It's remembering that you were never lost, that your worth doesn't come from control or calm or doing things the right way. It comes from simply being aware, fully, deeply, courageously aware. But here's the twist most people never expect. When you begin to awaken without meditation, your old identity starts to panic. It doesn't want to dissolve. It will do anything to keep you asleep. It will distract you with endless scrolling, fake problems, unnecessary drama, anything that pulls your attention away from truth. You'll start noticing the resistance inside you, that voice that says you're overthinking, or this is pointless, or you don't have time for awareness. That's not failure. That's your awakening expanding beyond the mind's control. Every time you catch the voice instead of obeying it, you're breaking another layer of illusion. And yes, it can feel uncomfortable, because awareness shines a light on things you didn't want to see. You start noticing how often you act from fear instead of freedom, how often you try to impress instead of express, how often you replay the past or predict the future instead of simply existing in this moment. But discomfort is a sign that you're waking up. Growth doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in clarity. The more you see, the more you evolve. And this is why awakening without meditation is so powerful, because it doesn't separate spirituality from reality. It brings it into reality. It's not about escaping your human experience. It's about fully entering it with awareness. Every frustration, every moment of impatience, every emotional reaction, these are your opportunities to awaken. Life itself becomes your spiritual teacher, constantly showing you where you're still asleep. The question is, are you paying attention? Because when you start paying attention deeply enough, something strange begins to happen. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop defending your ego and you start dissolving it. You begin to see the mechanics of your mind like you're watching a movie you've seen too many times, predictable, repetitive, but suddenly transparent. You realize that your inner drama is no longer that interesting. And that realization is freedom. But that's only the beginning. Because once you reach this level of awareness, when the noise of your mind begins to quiet naturally, not by force, something else starts to awaken inside you. Something ancient, something powerful, something beyond the mind itself. And when that begins to rise, your whole reality starts to shift in ways you never imagined. The moment awareness starts expanding, life begins to rearrange itself around you. You start noticing things you never paid attention to before. The tone in someone's voice, the tension in your chest when you lie to yourself, the way you instantly reach for your phone the second silence appears. These are not random details. They're mirrors showing you where your unconscious mind has been hiding. And that's the secret few ever talk about. Spiritual awakening doesn't happen in temples or mountains. It happens in grocery stores, office meetings, and long nights where your thoughts refuse to shut off. It happens when you finally stop running from discomfort and decide to look. Most people meditate to escape the noise, but the real awakening happens when you can hear the noise and still remain centered, when you no longer need peace to feel peaceful. When you stop chasing balance and start being balance, that's when you begin to live in a different kind of awareness, one that doesn't depend on conditions. You start realizing that nothing out there has ever been the problem. The world has always been neutral. It's your inner perception that paints it as heaven or hell. One thought can make your day feel heavy. One shift in awareness can make it feel light. The situation never changed, you did. That's the power of awakening without meditation. You're no longer a victim of your moods. You see your emotions as visitors, not permanent residents. You stop believing every story your mind tells, and you begin to feel the deep calm underneath it all, the stillness that's been waiting for your attention. But awareness doesn't grow in theory, it grows in practice. The practice of watching your own reactions in real time. For example, the next time someone criticizes you, don't rush to defend yourself. Just notice what happens inside you, the tightness in your stomach, the heat in your chest, the urge to argue. That observation alone is a doorway to higher consciousness, because in that moment you're no longer inside the reaction, you're aware of it. That's the essence of awakening, not suppressing emotions, not pretending to be above it all, but watching every movement of the mind as if you're witnessing someone else's life. That distance between awareness and reaction, that's your freedom. As awareness deepens, life becomes strangely simple. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start seeing how every event is shaping your consciousness. The traffic jam becomes patience training. The argument becomes a mirror for your ego. The failure becomes a lesson in surrender. Everything starts serving your growth, even the things you once avoided. And then a new kind of intelligence awakens, not the mental kind, but the intuitive one. It's the intelligence that doesn't come from thought, but from silence between thoughts. The kind that whispers truth without words. You'll notice it guiding you toward what feels right, not what looks right. You'll notice it pulling you away from people and patterns that drain your energy, even when your logic doesn't understand why. That's when you begin to experience life from the inside out. Instead of reacting to the world, you start creating from awareness. You respond with clarity instead of fear. You express instead of impress. You live instead of merely existing. But here's where the journey becomes even more mysterious. The more conscious you become, the more unconscious patterns you start to see. The light reveals the shadows. Suddenly you start noticing subtle things. How you seek validation in tiny ways. How you shapeshift your personality to be accepted. How you shrink your truth just to avoid discomfort. It can be uncomfortable to see all this, but that's exactly why most people stay asleep. Because awakening without meditation isn't glamorous. It's raw, direct, and sometimes painful. It asks you to face the things meditation often helps you escape from. It's the art of staying awake in the middle of discomfort instead of waiting for peace to come later. The truth is, life itself will become your meditation teacher if you let it. Every frustration is an invitation to observe yourself. Every challenge is a test of awareness. And every quiet moment, even the awkward ones, is your chance to see what your mind is really doing. You begin to realize that the real spiritual practice was never about technique. It was about presence. Noticing how you treat people when nobody's watching. Noticing how you speak to yourself when you fail. Noticing how you cling to what's familiar, even when it limits you. These small moments are where awakening truly lives. When you live like this, you no longer wait for perfect conditions to feel awake. You don't need the right playlist, the right posture, or the right mindset. Awareness becomes your constant companion. Even in chaos, you feel a subtle calmness, a knowing that whatever happens, you'll remain aware through it. And that's when something even deeper begins to unfold. Because the more awareness grows, the more the illusion of self begins to dissolve. You start seeing that the you've been protecting, your identity, your image, your labels, was never real to begin with. You begin to sense that there's something vast observing this life through your eyes, something timeless, steady, and untouched by circumstance. And once you start feeling that presence, that silent observer, you realize you were never trying to awaken. You were awakening itself. But what happens when that realization gets stronger? When you start to lose interest in the stories, attachments, and desires that once drove your whole life? That's when the next stage begins. Something strange starts happening. Once awareness becomes consistent, you begin to outgrow your old self. The one that constantly needed to be right, to be liked, to be understood. It's not that you suddenly become detached or emotionless, it's that you no longer need to prove who you are. The version of you that used to run the show starts to dissolve quietly, like mist disappearing in sunlight. You'll notice it first in small ways. The arguments that once triggered you now feel pointless. The opinions that used to offend you barely register. The drama that once excited you now feels heavy, almost childish. You begin to sense that there's something more real beneath all of it, something untouched by approval or rejection. This is the phase of awakening most people never reach, because it feels like losing yourself. You might wake up one morning and feel disconnected from the life you used to crave. The music, the people, the habits, they all feel slightly out of sync. It's as if you're watching your old life from a distance. You're still in it, but no longer of it. And that's where fear tries to creep back in. The mind starts whispering, what's happening to me? Am I changing too much? Am I losing who I am? But you're not losing yourself. You're losing your illusions. The illusions that said happiness must come from control, that peace must come from success, that love must come from others. When those illusions fade, what's left is pure awareness, life seeing itself through you. And yet this transition isn't comfortable, because while part of you is awakening, another part is resisting with everything it's got. You might feel a strange mix of clarity and confusion, peace and restlessness. Some days you'll feel lighter than ever. Other days it'll feel like your mind is tearing you apart. That's normal. It's the friction between who you were and who you're becoming. The truth is, awakening without meditation forces you to face this process without escape. There's no silent retreat, no practice to hide behind. Life itself becomes your mirror, brutally honest and impossible to avoid. Every situation exposes something you need to release. Every relationship tests your awareness. Every emotional storm challenges how awake you really are. And sometimes you'll fail those tests. You'll fall back into old patterns, lose your temper, overthink, or numb out. But even in that, something's changed. Because now you see it. You're aware of the fall. You're watching the mind's behavior instead of being consumed by it. That's progress most people overlook. Awakening isn't about being perfect. It's about being conscious of your imperfection. And as this awareness deepens, your relationship with life itself begins to shift. You no longer see problems as punishments. You see them as awakenings in disguise. Every challenge becomes a form of inner training. Pain becomes your teacher, not your enemy. You start understanding that the moments you resist the most are the ones carrying the key to your evolution. For example, think of that one person who always seems to get under your skin, the one who drains your energy or tests your patience. In your old state of mind, you might have blamed them or avoided them, but now you start to see them differently. They're showing you the parts of yourself that still react, still defend, still crave control. They're not the block to your awakening, they're the doorway. That's the irony of higher consciousness. The people who annoy you the most often reveal the exact areas where you're still asleep. And once you see that, you begin to thank the triggers instead of fighting them. Because every trigger shows you what still holds power over you, and awareness dissolves it instantly. But as your consciousness expands, something even more profound starts happening. The pace of your life may slow down naturally, not because you're lazy or unmotivated, but because you no longer chase meaning through motion. You begin doing things with intention instead of impulse. You speak less but with more depth. You choose peace over validation. You find joy in small, unnoticed moments. The warmth of sunlight, the sound of rain, the rhythm of your own breath. This is where the awakening starts to stabilize. You're no longer awakening from life. You're awakening within it. You stop separating spirituality from reality. Work becomes meditation. Relationships become awareness exercises. Rest becomes presence. Everything merges into one field of consciousness. But that merging also comes with a cost, the loss of identity. The person you thought you were begins to fade, and that can feel like death. You might grieve your own personality, your ambitions, your desires, and yet underneath that grief is a growing sense of freedom, the kind that doesn't depend on anything external. You realize that the real you was never the thoughts, the achievements, or the memories. It was the awareness silently watching it all unfold, the observer that was always there during joy, pain, confusion, and stillness. You begin to live as that observer, and when that shift happens, your outer world begins to respond. People will sense something different about you, even if they can't explain it. Your energy becomes calm but powerful, gentle but grounded. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be unsettled by it, because your presence mirrors their own unconsciousness. But something even more fascinating begins next, something that meditation alone could never unlock. Because once you reach this level of awareness, a new power starts to awaken within you, a silent strength that changes everything. You thought you knew about consciousness itself. When awareness becomes your natural state, something beyond the mind begins to stir. It's not dramatic. It's not a sudden flash of light or a supernatural event. It's quiet, almost invisible, yet it changes the way you experience everything. You begin to sense a power that doesn't come from effort, belief, or ritual. It's a silent strength that flows from simply being fully awake. You've spent years chasing peace, chasing meaning, chasing purpose. But now peace begins to chase you, because when you stop seeking, what you were looking for finally has space to arrive. Your energy shifts from trying to wake up to simply being awake. And in that stillness, an incredible intelligence begins to move through you. The intelligence of pure awareness itself. You start to notice how easily life unfolds when you stop interfering with it. The right people show up. The right moments appear. The answers you were trying to think your way toward suddenly reveal themselves in silence. It's not magic, it's alignment. When your awareness is clear, life stops being a problem to solve and starts becoming an experience to live. And here's the paradox. You didn't find awakening through meditation, but through life itself. Every frustration, every delay, every moment of doubt was your spiritual training in disguise. You were being guided by reality the entire time. Meditation may quiet the mind, but awareness transforms it, and that's the real awakening. You stop needing to control everything because you finally trust your awareness more than your thoughts. You stop forcing outcomes because you realize that the deeper intelligence within you already knows what to do. You stop resisting emotions because you see them as energy that wants to move, not problems that need fixing. And as you live this way, a new kind of sensitivity develops. Not weakness, but clarity. You start feeling everything more vividly, yet it no longer overwhelms you. You can stand in the middle of chaos and feel perfectly still inside. You can face rejection, failure, or uncertainty and still feel deeply connected to something stable, something beyond all of it. That's when you realize what awakening truly means. It's not escaping life. It's not erasing your personality or pretending you're always calm. It's the ability to stay conscious in every situation, love and heartbreak, peace and pressure, joy and grief, and to see that underneath it all, you remain the same unshaken awareness. This is the spiritual awakening that requires no meditation, no retreat, no teacher. Only honesty. Radical honesty with yourself about how you think, feel, and react. Because awareness grows wherever truth is allowed to exist. And once this level of consciousness stabilizes, your energy begins to influence others without you even trying. People around you feel calmer. Conversations become lighter. Your presence starts speaking louder than your words. You don't preach awakening as you embody it. You become the mirror that reminds others of what they already are. But awakening without meditation isn't a destination. It's a rhythm. A rhythm of noticing, understanding, releasing, and returning to awareness again and again. Some days you'll feel deeply awake. Other days you'll get lost in thought, emotion, or distraction. And that's okay. Because even when you forget, awareness is still there waiting for you to notice it again. You begin to see that awakening was never something to achieve. It's not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of living fully. It's the shift from surviving life to experiencing it. You realize that presence isn't something you practice, it's something you return to. Again and again, and in that realization comes freedom. Not the loud kind that demands attention, the quiet kind that nothing can take away. The freedom to think without being trapped by thought, to feel deeply without drowning in emotion, to live fully without needing life to go your way. That's the secret to awakening without meditation. You stop searching for higher consciousness and start embodying it in every moment. You realize that enlightenment isn't something you reach. It's something you remember. And when you remember, everything changes. The noise of the mind becomes background music. The chaos of the world becomes your classroom. Every breath becomes a reminder that awareness was never gone. You just weren't looking. Because the ultimate truth of awakening is this: the thing you've been searching for has been searching for you too. The moment you stop running, it catches you. And once it does, there's no going back to sleep. If this connected with you, thank you for watching until the end. Take a second to like this video and subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you're choosing to wake up a little more. And somewhere deep down you already know that's exactly why you're here.